everybody. How are you all? Very big welcome to you all on my very first Instagram live. So, hello everybody. Yes. So, for my first Instagram live, I am interviewing a good friend, Antonio Lanzo, who is a dancer with the Polish National Ballet, and just in December there, he choreographed his very first ballet, Cinderella, for the students at the Warsaw Schools. So I'm going to invite Antonio to join here, and then just bear with me. And hope that worked okay. Hello, Antonio.
Hello there. Hi, Amy. How are you doing? Hi.
I'm very well. Come sta?
Molto bene, grazie. I hope you're doing well.
Very much so, very much so. But first of all, Antonio, thank you very much for joining me. And, well, you have the honor of being my very first interviewee on my very first live. So, yes, there you go.
Well, thank you for inviting me and for having this wonderful idea to talk about, this ballet, this project and everything. So I feel very honored about it, actually. So thank you. Thank you, actually.
No, prego. Okay, so I think probably how we'll work this is, of course, we'll do the interview, and then, of course, if anybody in the audience has any questions, of course, everyone, you can just pop them in the chat, and we will, we'll answer them after the interview. So yes, okay.
Feel free, guys.
Okay, so let's get started then. Let's talk Cinderella, shall we? So
let's go.
So first of all, yeah, and everyone can hear me okay then. Yes, okay. So first of all, of course, Antonio, as I was saying, you're a dancer with the Polish National Ballet, and so this is your first big ballet, am I right? Your first full-length ballet.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was actually, I would say, yes, my first full length, because I've already done with the theater, let's say, like miniatures and things like that. I also did like one act ballets, but that was the first time having the whole evening for myself. So it was definitely my biggest project to date. So yeah, I would say that lots of work, but lots of fun.
Yeah.
So,
and when did you first develop an interest in choreography? Can you remember when you was it something that was always there, or did it gradually develop, or what happened?
I think it was kind of like always there. I think if we want to think like the very, very first creations that I could have ever done, I just even remember like staging little plays with my friends when we'll have like family dinners or things like that. So, and I always like to be in control of things. I was this kind of child a little bit, very like hyperactive and everything. So I remember like stealing a lot of clothes from my parents' wardrobes, like kind of putting scarves on top of my friends and things like that, like building. I remember we kind of built some kind of curtain even, like, I don't know, I was stealing like fake flowers and things like that from my parents as well, just to create sort of set. So I think it's always kind of been there. I was really this kind of child. So yeah, probably I think it's always been there. And then knowing, also starting to dance and everything, I think it kind of developed. And yes, and I think here we are. But I'm pretty sure it's been there from the beginning. I'm pretty sure. Yes, I wouldn't doubt.
Yeah. Very, very, very creative, very structured, and so on. Yes, indeed. From a young age.
Was an only child, but I don't know how my parents would have done it, honestly. But yes, I think it's really probably from day one. But I think I'll have to ask my parents the most. That's for sure. Yes.
Yeah. And so, as a choreographer, which choreographers would you say serve as the biggest as the biggest inspiration to you? Are there any in particular?
I mean, if we talk generally, I mean, it always depends on the theme that you want to go for. I don't really want to like try to recreate or kind of copy, but of course, like inspiration also comes by, even things that are like stuck subconsciously in the noodle, as I like to say. from experiences and things. It depends on the thing. Of course, the first thing that always, creates, the idea and the movement and the concept, whatever, is always the music. Without the music, not go anywhere. But I think, like, as probably favorite choreographers, well, I like to say he's quite unknown, but he's this choreographer, this Leonid Jakobson. I think he's absolutely
Yes.
fantastic choreographer. There is nothing quite like him. The way he creates movements, combinations, arms, and like how he feels the music, I think it's absolutely genius. Never boring, always fresh. Absolutely fantastic choreographer, and I think very underrated. So I say that's the one. Second, I have a soft spot for Jerome Robbins. Absolutely love him because I think he's a very human choreographer. There's many moments where it can either be very witty, it can be very human, very silent, and it can also be, well, obviously he choreographed a lot for Broadway, so it can be very flashy and things like that, and lots of humor. So I love that. But also, if I have to be quite honest, I've always been a big fan of Matthew Bourne.
Ah,
So much,
yes.
so much. The way that he manages to like put together a show, to create a story, I think it's like director. It's not like even choreographer, it's director.
Yeah.
And he manages to create shows, like dance shows, that are enjoyed not just by the dance community or like a dance audience, but like literally by anybody who goes and witnesses that. So I would say more or less the three of them. And of course, well, depending on some things, it also comes maybe from your experience as a dancer. I danced Pierre Lacotte, I danced John Neumeyer, so some little things for other things kind of come and go, but I never try to really replicate.
Yeah.
It kind of maybe, as the subconscious goes. But as I said, I would say that the music is always the
Yeah.
first thing, and that kind of opens the thing, and then it goes from there, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, but like like balancing, if you like. Yeah, you go. The music comes first in a way. Yes.
Yeah, I would say so. Like even sometimes when like, because I never got to actually stage a ballet with like an orchestra, but like, so I always had to look for recordings, and sometimes maybe you find like the same piece of music, but I would just like spend hours just going through different recordings, and maybe I'm like, oh yeah, but the oboe doesn't sound right here. Oh, that's not what I'm looking for. So even like different interpretations can completely change the way you see it. So yeah, I would say that without the music, there's no starting point. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. But what is dance without music? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's the perfect marriage. So you can't do anything with that, I would say. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk a little more about Cinderella then. So
Yeah.
obviously this is your first full-length
Hmm.
ballet, and you choreographed it for the students at the school
Yes.
in Warsaw,
Yeah.
and it premiered in December. And of course, it was great that they live streamed it, and it's available to watch
Yeah.
on YouTube for anyone who
That was
hasn't
great.
seen it. Yeah. So tell me, how did the commission for Cinderella come about then? How did you get the call or whatever?
Well, it started with a big jump scare, because I got called in the office of my director, of Krzysztof Pastor, director of the Polish National Ballet, and that's always a big jump scare when you get the call. Like, sorry, could you please come to the office? We have some things. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get fired now. What did I do? Like, that. But then I went into his office, and he was like, sit down, and actually, I received two propositions, two commissions, which never happened in my life, because I to ever receive a commission, period. So I got the commission to create a piece for the junior company that was still not founded. Like, it was gonna be the very first piece, so that was quite crazy. And then after that, he was like, and then for the next 2 seasons, because that happened in, I think, May or June of 2023. So we're talking like 2 years ago already, basically. And he was like, and yeah, and we would like you, with the educational department of the theater. We would like you to create a full length, very traditional, because it has to be, for the kids and everything. It's a very traditional look of Cinderella. So that kind of went like that. He was like, don't tell anyone yet, don't tell anyone yet. But it was kind of hard. And so yeah, that's how it came about. And I think it was yeah, like the jump scare kind of left off immediately with
Yeah.
very. So yeah, that was and also to get to at the same time was really crazy, especially when so that was really cool. That's how it kind of came. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the first Cinderella ballet that you saw? And have you yourself ever danced in Cinderella?
No, I have never ever danced in any productions of Cinderella. Our theater has done the Frederick Ashton, Sir Frederick Ashton production, and it was supposed to come back, but then it never happened. And well, I have a soft spot for the roles of the sisters, so it doesn't matter. That's one of my dream roles. I think it would be a bliss to do that, but no, never got to dance in it, unfortunately. But so we'll see in the future if that will ever happen. But the very first Cinderella ballet that I have seen, it's quite interesting because it's quite controversial. It was the Nureyev version.
Oh, okay.
I used to own the DVD as a child, but it's really not the traditional version that you would think of. So, and then others came on. It's set in Hollywood and things like that. So I was actually a little bit confused when I started being very young and used to a different telling of the story.
Yeah.
But that was the first one, and then of course others came and things like that. But now that I think about it, I don't think I have ever even seen a Cinderella ballet live. You know, I've only seen them on DVDs and things like that, and no, so never really had like a close relationship to that, which I think in some ways it's very good.
Okay.
Because it could take away from any kind of steps related, some kind of ideas that I could have had in my experience. It was kind of like new ground. So that's that was, I think, the good part of it. But no.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now, one thing that's of course stands out about your Cinderella is that you don't use Sergei Prokofiev's score.
Yeah.
You instead use the music of Jules Massenet from his Cendrillon opera. So there's two questions here regarding the music. The first one, what made you decide not to use Prokofiev's music?
Well, this was not my decision because due to our political times, in our theater and generally in Poland, in national institutions, we are not allowed to use any kind of musical Russian repertoire.
Oh, okay.
So Prokofiev was like out of question completely. But in a way, I was quite happy with that because don't get me wrong, I love Prokofiev. I danced Romeo and Juliet though, and oh my goodness, that music is it's like food to the soul. It's like a movie score. I love Peter and the Wolf. I absolutely love that. I love his first symphony. I love his violin concerto. I think he's absolute genius. But when it comes to Cinderella, that's a very interesting topic, I would say, on Prokofiev music. Of course, there's many moments like the waltz. The waltz is something that, you know, carries you away. Sometimes they play it for a class, and, you know, the pianist played from class, and I just, it's so beautiful. But when you think about the whole gamma, the whole orchestration of the thing, I think you can hear that it's a composition that was written in the Soviet Union, in 4 years of the Second World War. That's my opinion. You can really hear that there's a lot of darkness into that. And when it comes to a Cinderella story, that never clicked to me. So of course, with the years, getting used to the score, even if I've never danced it, but sometimes it's nice to put on because why not? You get used to that, but it doesn't give me, in my perspective, in my sight, it doesn't really give me the Cinderella vibe that we know. Yeah. So that's the reason why I had no choice, you know, to then find something else. But in a way I was actually quite happy with that. I have to be honest.
Yeah. And then what was it? So obviously you had to look somewhere else, and you turned to Massenet's opera. What was it that stirred you towards Massenet's opera?
Well, actually, as an Italian and having a grandmother that used to be a soprano, an opera singer, the first thing that comes to your mind is obviously Rossini, Cenerentola, the opera. So that was what I actually started with. I was already like creating my kind of playlist on Spotify and things like that. I was doing my research. I started to watch the opera in its entirety. But, you know, I had no chance to arrange the music with any, like, you know, any composer or anything. So I had to really take the pieces as they were. Because at first I was like, oh, maybe we could like try to find an arranger, but that would have been too hard under many aspects. And so I was like a bit worried because I was like, oh my God, Rossini is great. Rossini is really nice. As an Italian, you cannot help but loving it. But I missed the drama. I was missing many, many times. I felt like that there's not also many instrumental pieces by Rossini. They're mostly sung.
Yeah.
So it was very hard to create a puzzle, like way to go with music that unfortunately sounded a little bit all the same. So I was not really sure. I was starting to doubt it. And then one day I was just thinking like, oh God, who wrote Cinderella? Like, I was like, trying to, embrace all the power of my noodle. And I was trying to get through that. And then I was like, oh, Massenet. Oh my God, he wrote Cinderella, the opera. And also I thought of Johann Strauss because I studied in Vienna. So we have a big influence of Johann Strauss. That was I believe his only ballet that he ever wrote. He also, I think it was also his last composition. So he kind of left it incomplete. So I was like, oh, maybe that would be like a nice way to pay homage to that. But that didn't go. And the moment I started to hear excerpts from the Cinderella by Massenet, I was like, oh yeah, that's the one. That's the one. And then I started with that because the music is there's a lot from the opera of Cinderella, but there's a lot more that is not at all from Cinderella. It's some of his ballet musics from his different operas because he wrote gazillions operas. There's also many ballets that are absolutely rare, never performed, but they are recorded, so that's great. And he wrote many symphonic suites, which is very, very interesting because even in his like just concert pure form music, you can really tell that he was a man of the theater. He was really like writing things with a big sense of drama, and that's what I really needed. And so it took me, let's say, I think a good 4 months to put the whole score together. Of course, there have been like cuts, rearrangements, because also the I chose from Cinderella, the actually Cendrillon opera, it was taken from the Ballet Divertissement. So because of course in big French operas, you needed to have the ballet. And what best occasion to put the ballet in the ball scene, that's just perfect. So, but of course, the music that has been taken from that has absolutely no relation to the story whatsoever. So I had to kind of replace it, imagine, and it took me, I would say like a good 4 months to kind of have like a puzzle all together to see it happen. So yeah, I would say that was the thing. And the thing also about, if I come back to the question of Prokofiev, I have to say that the Massenet music sounds so Disney somehow. It's so full of colors, the orchestration, it really tells the story so well. And yeah, I cannot help it but love it. And even it was really nice when I would put like a new piece of, like we were gonna work on a new moment, a new piece. I would see like the teachers or the kids like starting to humming it or being like, oh, this is really nice music actually. So, so of course it does a lot, and I think it serves the purpose and also the story very well, especially if it wants to be told in a very traditional fairy tale like way. So I think it was the way to go. I was very happy with that, really. Yeah.
And in terms of influence and inspiration, you told me that you turned to the 1893 Cinderella, which was staged by Lev Ivanov, Enrico Cecchetti, and Marius Petipa. Now, can you tell me a little bit more about how that served as inspiration, and what else proved very influential for you when you were putting this together?
Well, I think the thing is because they wanted something very traditional, very grand ballet kind of thing, if we want to put it in this way, but of course in like reduced space because the premiere took place in the chamber stage of our theater. I wanted to go for something grand. And when you think classical ballet, of course, the first word that comes into your mind as a ballet dancer is obviously petit pas. The thing that was kind of putting me down about it is that I couldn't find enough material to, of course, I was reading your blog as much as possible, to try to like gather as many information as possible, seeing the pictures, seeing the media that is still available. But it's a ballet that kind of didn't really stand the test of time like others of Petit Pas, which is it's a big, you know, it's a pity, because I'm sure it would have been wonderful, judging by the costumes and the ideas and the sets and everything. But I was trying to kind of go in that way, and also when I was trying to put like the projections together of the idea of how it was going to be staged, I was even like using those pictures as a reference. If we talk just as a look of the thing. And then a lot, I would say, there's other two things, which is the use of the corps de ballet, because the way that you will put like a grand spectacle together as Petit Pas would do, and obviously the pantomime. I wanted to really, since Cinderella is a very nostalgic thing for everybody, I was like, okay, so we have to go full on nostalgia and kind of try to pay homage to that look, even with having extremely little media, but available for that. But I tried my best to kind of go onto that direction, because I feel like it's probably the only one who has kind of tried to do it for like a Cinderella ballet production was probably Frederick Ashton. But again, with the Prokofiev music, so I was trying to kind of deviate from that idea as much as possible and try to embrace the Petit Pas Ivanov Cecchetti idea as much as possible. Yes, that was my thing, let's say.
Yeah, but would you say, in terms of the choreography, would you say that you were maybe trying to almost capture the style of
I was
Petit
trying
Pas?
I was trying to, in the best of my abilities, because I would say mostly, especially, I think the one that probably would be reminiscent the most of Petit Pas is probably the vaults, the closing vaults in the second act. I tried to put many arms, many like kind of like specific look and style, the way the formations are made, the way that each group comes and creates. That was, I think, the most Petit Pas of the whole thing. I mean, of course, also creating the groups. I think mostly the second act was the most Petit Pas inspired, and that I think was the best idea to go for. You know what I mean? When you think of all these formations, because I've seen some reconstructions, of course, also on your channel, and of course, it's so fascinating to look how things were set, and like, you know, it's really, it's such an eye-opening experience. I was like, okay, this is so beautiful. I need to try to not imitate it, but try to pay homage the best way possible, even to use like the little 8 fairies, the fairy attendants. There's the 8 fairy attendants in the Sleeping Beauty, so there's a little moment where they, from here, they kind of shift in this diagonal in the second act. So that was a moment I was like, oh, they actually do that in the Sleeping Beauty. So I was like, I was trying to capture little things here and there, but I would say mostly the second act or the fairy moments, or even a lot of the hands they do. Pity because they're not really seen, because there's but if you catch in the video, you will see there's all these hands, all these things that are very there's a lot of things that is done on demi point, not fully on point. All these things that I think I find somehow so modern. You know what I mean? Like, it's very it's so refreshing to see. So I try to capture that as much as possible as I could, at least in the dancing. And for me, I think the most was the corps de ballet work, the corps de ballet. The way that Petit Pas stages the corps de ballet dances is just seeing in the reconstruction is well, it's master, it's genius. And so that was, I think, my biggest inspiration on like on the proper setting of the steps, I would say. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because it reminds me of a quote from Ashton, who actually said that Petit Pas' best dances were his group dances. You know, and sure enough, yes, and I could definitely see that in your act. Yes, it did. I think obviously maybe had there been maybe more boys, more male dancers, it would have been, but it would have, well, actually, it made me think, gosh, imagine if you'd managed to stage a huge ensemble for over 60 or 70 dancers. You would have really been going full on Petit Pas there.
Oh, I would have gone crazy, but at the same time, I was very glad that there were not many boys available to work with, because anyway, in the story, all the girls are looking, you know, to get married for the prince. So it wouldn't make sense to have also having them paired with boys at the same time, because I would lose the sense of that. So I was very, course, like the biggest dances that Petit Pas has ever made, of course, it's for the female corps de ballet. So I really try to, you know, emulate a little bit of that, taking a little bit from like Swan Lake, a little bit from like, I don't know. I just literally, I just remember whatever image of constructions I had, just mixed in my brain, and I was like, okay, we are going for that. So, you know, without trying to copy, obviously, but trying my best to pay homage to the style.
Keep the chain going, if you like. Not copy, but keeping the chain going. Yeah, exactly. The link.
We are talking about nostalgia, you know, so it's kind of like having this, you know, paying homage to that. Also because I feel like, of course, we do classical ballets in our theater and everything, but I feel like this feeling is missing sometimes, and so I wanted to try to give it my best, and hopefully it worked. I have no idea.
I think
We'll
it did.
see.
Yeah, no, I did. I think you did a really good job. Yes, absolutely. And then yes, you mentioned that you also used pantomime, and of course that's not something we tend to see in many new productions or
Yeah.
new ballets today. And as we all know, of course, it was taken out in the Soviet Union, and then of course in productions in the West it disappeared as well. Although it appeared more in the West than it did in the Soviet Union, of course. Um, so yes, do you think so obviously you use pantomime as a way, obviously, as homage to Petipa, but do you also think that it is important for more ballets, old and new, to start using pantomime, do you think?
I absolutely, because when done very well though, because
Yeah.
this is a very big slippery slope. If done well, it explains the story absolutely perfectly. There have been, like, you know, I will come, I'll use a comment, not actually one, but I got a few comments. There were, of course, friends watching that are not dancers or things like that, and I was like, and I went to them and I was like, but did you understand all these like gestures, all these things? And they were like, oh my God, yes, it was super clear. This means Marian, this is a crown. And I was just like, it's really, when done well with intention, it's like acting without words. You know what I mean? I remember even when I watched the reconstruction of Petipa's Giselle by Ratmansky, you know, that's a little anecdote, but that was just from my experience. I could never stand the first act of Giselle. I was just like, oh God, I don't like it's, but that was just my thing. I loved the second act, always loved it, but I was like the first act, except of medicine. But then I watched Ratmansky and I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Like literally, it was like watching a movie. I was so into that I was like, there is power. There is so much power into that, and that's also what the audience, a not ballet audience, can relate to. And you're not just doing a performance for a niche kind of group, you know, you're trying to do a performance for anybody in the audience. So I do believe in the power of pantomime, but of course, that's the hardest thing to do, because we all know as dancers, like what is pique arabesque, we all know what is a pirouette, we all know what is ballonnet, we all know that. This, you know, you can tell the dancers like, oh, maybe try to turn out, try to be on your leg, but we all know it, we all know that. But to stage those scenes, which are anyway the most important scenes in any ballet performance, it's been the hardest. It's the hardest. Doesn't matter if you're a student, doesn't matter if you are a seasoned dancer. It takes the most amount of work. It doesn't even matter like how you're standing, how you're like, you know, where you direct your arms, with which intention. It's completely different work, but it's when you see it also coming, it's the most rewarding, because you actually see the story come to life. And there's so many gestures that you can even play choreographic. It's I think it's absolutely fascinating, and I believe that if we keep it up and we put the right word, because I feel like it's also that because it's not used so much anymore, I see that also, like, you know, in like a professional environment, it's not taken so seriously sometimes, and that kills, that destroys my heart, because then it just looks like what are we doing, you know what I mean? What are we doing? There has to be a text behind it, there has to be common sense behind it. You're telling a story, and that's what actually really matters. Of course you need the technique, because without that you will not be able. It's like, you know, you are an actor and you don't know any word in the vocabulary. You need to know the vocabulary, but you cannot recite the vocabulary, it's boring. But if you put it with other things, you know, you need to have a base, but then on top of that you need to create the story. And I think pantomime, you know, even like all these pantomime things, all these things, like I could hear people laughing in the audience. People were like laughing sometimes, and I was just like, but not in like a, you know, like mocking way, but like they were really believing in what the dancers were doing. Like they were really engaged in the story. So I was like, oh, okay, that worked. I'm very happy with that. So I really do believe a lot in the pantomime and its power. And of course, obviously, if we're talking to do a classical production, there has to be There has to be, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
said that your ballet is basically in many respects an homage to Petipa and so on. But of course, there were also some modern touches. You know, obviously you're full of your own touches and styles. Like for example, Cinderella dancing barefooted when she's a servant,
Mhm.
and so would you say that, you know, in terms of creating something new, you were looking to find a good balance between ballet of today and ballet of yesterday, you know, to create something that pays homage to the past, but at the same time something that's new and fresh.
Yeah, I would say so. I think you just try to, you know, when you come up with this idea, you want with any idea, let's say, but as I said before, kind of like all the experiences or things that you've seen or really you danced or something, it kind of all comes together, and you try to also, of course, have your own kind of vision, but you try to have to think also of who is the audience, you know, and in this case it was obviously more, you know, directed to children. So, but I don't believe in that. I think we're all little children inside. You know what I mean? We always keep that. So, you know, you have to do it quite universal. You know, there has been many inspirations, you know, for example, but that was the thing since like a very long time. Like I even before knowing that, I was like, I was always really bugged. But the Cinderellas I've seen, I was like, you know, the Cinderella, the symbol of that is the shoe. It's
Mm.
the shoe. So I was like, she cannot have shoes in the beginning. She cannot have point shoes. I could never stand the fact that Cinderella always had point shoes. From an audience point of view, that makes no sense because if you're really far, also, yeah, of course, there's like, oh, I'll show you. Wait, sorry, I'm wearing my pajama, but this is um you know, this is
Yeah.
from my costume designer. He made to me as a present. But you see, but you can see it here. But like if you're sitting far away and she's wearing this kind of decorated point shoes, you won't see that. So that was the idea. I was like, yeah, she has to start barefoot. Of course, it was a bit tricky, this thing where she had to put the point shoes on stage. That was always a little bit tricky. But for example, even like, you know, I got inspired by Broadway, you know, because I was like, I always also could never stand when a Cinderella, when she has to change, which is the moment we're all waiting for,
Mm.
she runs backstage. She changes and then she comes back. I was like, no, that like no, 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 no. This has to happen on stage. And of course, when I spoke to the costume designer, I was like, we have to go full on Broadway for that. You know what I mean? Like the magic has to happen on the stage, and he made a fantastic job. Also, it's like, you know, the girl playing Cinderella. I'm sure she was. This was probably the most stressful moment. You know, changing the dress on stage and putting the point shoes on stage. That we took a few rehearsals to do that. You know,
Oh,
props are never fun, but we did like she did great job as well. And then even like the scene when for example the prince is looking for Cinderella when they try the shoe, you know, you could have gone, in my opinion, you know, in a very kind of like little mise-en-scène kind of thing. Oh, he goes on and off, you know, in the Prokofiev version he travels to different countries and things
yeah.
like that, but I didn't want to really do that. And I was like, oh, okay, I found this great piece of music by Massenet, which is a tarantella. I was like, you know, I got inspired that it could be maybe like a comic relief kind of scene situation. And I used the tarantella to somehow turn it into like a
Yeah.
can-can.
Yeah.
So I feel like this Broadway kind of feeling as well, you know, Moulin Rouge, all these things. But also, you know, my inspiration sometimes was just Charlie Chaplin, you know, because I believe that silent movies are ballets actually,
Mm.
you know, silent movies are just ballets. That's why I also love Matthew Bourne so much, because it's like watching a silent movie with great music under. So that was the thing that I was trying to go for
Yeah.
actually. So I would yeah, I think it's many inspirations of many things that kind of like somehow collided together. And yes, it went that. We also try to keep it fresh for audiences of today, you know, like many ideas. So yes, I
It's
would
very,
say that.
it's a very
Yeah.
good reminder, actually, that ballet is theatre. So having all this sort of these touches in ballet, it's not supposed to be alien. It's not supposed to be come as such a shock, because this is it's theatre. It's a theatrical production, and it's, you know, loads of wonders are meant to happen here. You know, it's not just in the musicals. It's not just in the operas. No, it's in ballet too. So yeah, it's really interesting to hear you saying all that. Yeah.
Yeah. like they were like, I heard this was just one comment, like one girl came to me, I was like, I didn't know that ballet could be so funny. And I was like, well, thank you, that's actually one of the best compliments you could ever get, you know what I mean? Because also I obviously, as a choreographer, I was very like, oh my god, this is cringe, oh my god, this is not gonna be funny at all, or all these things. But to see that people were touched by that, it's great, it's really really great. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
there should be like a whole, you know, I also decided to put a sound sometimes, like, you know,
Yes.
like
Yes.
the Duke, like, oh, fainting, or like the one of the stepsisters starting to completely cry at some point, or the man. Some of them were also like the artists. They were like, "Can we do that? Can we do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, go on, do that." You know what I mean? And these are also the moments that a not regular audience is touched by that. And also, I think these are the things that make also want people to come back to watch a ballet and get more informed into that. You know, so you have to meet. You know, there has to be also this kind of marriage.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were many inspirations, yes, but yeah, I would say Charlie Chaplin was a big one for sure. Yes.
The Duke was actually, I think, the Duke talking about comedy. He was probably the funniest character. The guy playing him was just fantastic. He
Oh
definitely
yeah.
has a very good knack for comedy. They
Oh,
all do, which is
he
wonderful.
he
Yeah.
he brought the house down. Like I loved him so much. He was just so full of energy. I don't know how he did it every show to just go 120%. I loved him. He was yeah, he's a sweetheart. And yeah, I can't wait to see him back on stage. Like everyone else was also, the sisters were fantastic. I mean, everybody was
Yeah.
fantastic, you know, like every person that worked in this. But yeah, Piotr, the guy who played the Duke, was a complete surprise, I have to say. So
Yeah.
he completely embraced the role and took it even further than what I asked him to do. But I didn't say anything. I was like, "Oh, you're having fun." And when you see someone having fun, what can you say?
Yeah.
You just have let them have fun, you know, because if they have fun, the audience will have fun, you know. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And and also tell us a bit about the costumes, because what I really liked was that you used the bell shaped tutus,
Mm-hmm.
as Bratmansky calls them, instead of the flat tutus, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was a really really good touch. Again, very theatrical and very suitable for Cinderella. And I've really got, personally, I have developed a new fondness for all these dress like or bell shaped tutus as opposed to the flat ones, especially in the story ballets.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could really feel a very big Marie Antoinette vibe with the stepmother and the queen, especially with those
Yes,
giant wigs. I was thinking, gosh,
beautiful.
how do they handle those? But yeah, so
I
what
don't know either. I don't know either.
so what was it that you and the costume designers how did you envision for the production, that the production would look, how it would look?
Well, first of all, I would like to give a big shout out to the costume designer, which was not the first time we were together in a performance. His name is Emil Wysotsky, and he's a genius. That's the only word I can have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I think we also share a big love for the Cinderella story itself.
Yeah.
So it was already a great starting point for this production. Well, basically, the thing oof, how can I put it? I don't see Cinderella wearing a tutu. Period. You know what I mean? Like, especially when like most of us we grew up with the Disney version. She's a princess. Like, no tutus allowed. You know, I would rather go for something that looks like an actual, of course, ballet stylized, but princess dress, if we can call it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really go for that. But also, you know, that's what I thought about. So we are going for the French telling of the story by Perrault.
Yeah.
We're going for the French composer, which is Massenet.
Yeah.
So I was like, that would be set in France. Period. You know what I mean? We need to have the three, the thing. And so I was like, it has to take place during the Rococo period. You know, there has to be that. And so since both me and Emil, the costume designer, we already did, my first ballet was actually based on Eine kleine Nachtmusik by Mozart. So there was already like a big Baroque, Rococo. It was more stylized. It was more of like a fantasy kind of world for only people. So it was very, everyone had their own character, but there were wigs, there were things, but very, somebody was just like bare chested or something like that. So that was a fantasy. But here I was like, since we already share also this big love for the Rococo and Baroque period, I was like, honey, we are going school on, and he delivered like it looks like children's
Uh-huh.
storybook. Children's. It almost looks also a bit like the movie by Coppola, Marie Antoinette, which we both love. It's really like so many colors that like they work so well together. I remember like they were like I opened like I went into the fitting rooms and everything, and I was just like it was such a, you know, you don't really get lately to see so many colors, so many glitters, so many sparkles. It was really like, you know, entering a fairy tale world. And he did a fantastic job with the wigs. He went so crazy with the wigs, but they work so well. And also I think he managed to also give to each character really his own characterization with the costumes. I think he did the most fantastic job. He got so many compliments because they are completely deserved. And I could say so many things, but really he's yeah, he needs to be protected at all costs, really. And the biggest heart, really. He's genius. Yes, I was very happy again to work with Emil on this production, and I think without him this production would not look so good. Let me tell you. I know, because he did a fantastic job for like each character. And the wigs, oh my god, the wigs. So a
Yeah.
sucker for so yes, yeah. I was very happy, very
Yeah.
happy.
And how would you summarize the experience of putting all this together? I mean, what did you find the most enjoyable, and what did you find the most challenging in putting this together?
I think the most enjoyable was the fact that it was Cinderella, because that's, I would spend so many days like watching different tellings of the story. Not the ballets. I completely decided to avoid the ballets, I think, as I said before. But I would watch so many movies,
Yeah.
like starting from the Disney, going to even from like a Cinderella story by Hilary Duff, trying to take. And it's always like such a heartwarming story that, you start to get, of course, inspiration for whatever you want to tell it, but also like you get really the message of what's behind that, which is a fabulous story. So I think of having the Cinderella fairy tale, because also I think when you think of fairy tale, you automatically think of Cinderella in general.
Mm.
It's really one of the fairy tales. So it's nice that you have always this little magic, it's something light and heartwarming that everyone loves. And of course, working with the children, really, I was so worried at the beginning. I was really like, oh my god, am I going to like deliver? I had to speak in Polish sometimes because they're little kids. So I was like, oh god, this is gonna be very hard. I was like, oh my god, I hope, but not because of them, but because of me. Like if I was gonna like be up to the situation. So, but piece of cake, piece of cake. Of course, you have to tell, like, you have to teach them, because I was treating this really like a ballet performance, like they will treat it in a professional company. And I was really telling, like, once I teach the steps, you need to know them. I don't think I was playing bad policeman. That's not the point, because also that doesn't bring you anywhere. But you need to also, you need to show that this is the work sometimes. So without any emotions, nothing, but you have to be like, okay, this is how it's done. We need to remember it. There's not much time. It's a big thing. But I think it's because they were so excited to do something different that they don't really get, they were the stars of the show. So they were just, I think you could tell. It was really, sometimes I had to go, like, actually, sometimes I had for 4 months, I think in general, I had maybe 5 days off or something like that because of this. Because that was the hard part. That was the hard part, because I had to also combine my job as a
Yes.
dancer. Thank goodness, that's how it works. That's the theater. You cross the street, and that's the school. So thank goodness I just had to cross the street. I would go in my worst looking attire, because we all know that ballet dancers in the rehearsals time, they look like homeless people, but that's fine. But that part of the charm, I would say. There was even one day, it was ridiculous. The uh, the first lady of Poland was invited to the school to
Oh,
watch, and I was late because I had rehearsals in the theater. And everything was really, the school was, full of flowers, full of, it was looking beautiful. And then I come there sweaty, like having been run, like I could hear my music from the corridor, and I was like, it was like a I was like, oh, that's my music. And so I had to like run, and it was ridiculous. But so yeah, that was the hard part. I have to say, to try to combine my schedule as a
Uh-huh.
dancer and my schedule as teacher, because obviously, like the ballet was all in my head. So without me, they couldn't, obviously, they could maybe revise what I've done, but it was very hard, just time wise. But I have to be honest, and I knew about this. I do miss it. I do miss it a lot, because now that I have more free time, of course, now I am, the school is on holidays, but when I will come back, we have to restage it because there's performances in March.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's a different story. You can take it, you can change little things here and there, but you know already how it's gonna look. It's already been danced. But I do miss it. I do miss it because I was just like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
I was just like, what do I do now? I was just like, I think it kind of hit me a little bit. Now with the beginning of the new year, I was really not used to it whatsoever. I think I'm still not used to it, but I'm really happy that soon, when the school holidays are gonna be over, we're gonna start again. I'm really, really excited about that. But I have to say, yeah, time management, I don't know how I've done it. Doing my shows, doing my rehearsals as a dancer, and then also being there in the school. So so yeah, that was the hardest part, I have to say. But really, thank goodness, like you can see the theater, like you can see the school from the theater,
Yeah.
like from the windows. So that's the greatest part. So yes, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
And if the opportunity came, do you think you might stage Cinderella for professional dancers if
Oh,
if companies came calling asking?
yeah, yeah. I think sometimes I think about it, and I even like I'm like doing like a little casting in my head, and they're not even like dancers from my company. They're dancers I know from my friends from other companies. I'm like, I have these really two close friends, and I was like, oh, they are the stepsisters. Like they would be perfect for that. But of course, like Petit Pas also would do. I think at least the little mice and the pages, I think they should be played by children. That's for sure. Because especially the little mice, that will completely lose its charm if it was done by adults. Otherwise, we will turn into a kind of nutcracker situation, and that wouldn't really work. So, but yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that would be nice, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. And one thing that I love that you told me that about your Cinderella is that you actually pay homage to Pierina Lignani, who was the Cinderella in the 1893 production. And obviously, as a ballet historian, it's always wonderful when I find dancers who also have an interest in ballet history. And when did your interest start? When did you first become interested?
So I think it's very simple. I used to beg my mother when I started to dance. I don't know how to say, but we have these kind of places which I think they're very probably just Italians, but I could be very wrong. It's kind of like I don't even know how to say. It's like a kiosk. It's like a little stand that we have many in Italy, like this, where they would sell like newspaper or things like magazines. And I remember like when I actually started to do ballet, it was exactly at the same time. A big collection of 50 DVDs will come out twice monthly with the papers. And so I have like the whole collection, but that's not the only one. I started to become obsessed as a child to like watch all different versions of ballets. And every time, really, that was great. Every time it would come together with a booklet, but that was so intensively explained. There was, I think, 3 parts just explaining how the history went, or the thing that would like talk about the composer or the choreographer or the reasons, like the premiere, how it went, how it developed, the different versions. It was really, and I found that always so fascinating. Of course, they were also explaining all the story and things like that, really like detail, like with chapters and things like that. But they would explain the story with so many pictures. Really, it was, unfortunately, I can't remember the name of the journalist who was taking care of that. It's been a lot of years now, but I should reread that. But it was, there were like 50 ballets, so it will go from like, Swan Lake, Don Q, Giselle, Paquita, all the things, and then even to like more modern productions. It was really like a range of variety of things, but they were really, really explaining. There were all these names popping out, and that also, when you go to more traditional ballets, they will again pop out. Then when you go to ballet school, you have also history classes, and you're like, oh, that's the name I remembered about. And then you see excerpts and things like that. And then, I don't know, maybe you watch, I remember I watched Spartacus because it was part of this collection by Grigorovich. And then maybe you buy a Swan Lake DVD because I became obsessed, and it was by Grigorovich, and you're like, oh, okay, so you start to connect many things. And then I will then beg my mom to buy me more history books, things like that, to read them. Also, you know, I would go on internet, and as a teenager, that was the time when internet was starting to appear for all of us in our homes. So yeah, I became very fascinated with that, and with the years, I mean, at first I was always a little bit embarrassed to be the one that always knew a little bit about it. When you're like maybe 13, 14, or a little bit like a little bit nerdy or things like that. But I have to say that with the age, I'm something that I'm really glad that I could always be interested in and cultivate, because I believe that if you are a dancer, no matter what, or like an artist, doesn't matter what kind, but I always ask myself how some people don't even have idea why we still perform this kind of performance. Why is this still relevant? Like, why you don't know, like, who composed this, how it was composed, like many things, how this ballet developed through the, I feel like I'm still an ignorant. I feel like there's people like you, for example, like I read your vlog so many times just to get so many more information. I feel like compared to all of you guys, I'm like really complete ignorant. But I'm really glad that there is this spark, and I just wish, because that was very surprising, that more people will have that, But I had situations where you will maybe start to talk with like a colleague about these kind of things, and they get so fascinated, and I'm just like, well, read a book, honey. You know what I mean? Like, try to get information or something like that. I find it absolutely not only fascinating, but I think it's something that everyone should, especially if you're part of the field, of course, that should read, get interested, and also pay respect, because without these people, we wouldn't have what we have today.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you fall in love with it, but you should definitely give it a try. Like, if I'm dancing Anna Karenina, like I read Anna Karenina, when I bought the book, I was like, oh my God, it's like that. But I loved it at the end of the day, and I understood so many more things. Like, we even danced Dracula, which is really not my cup of tea, but you know what I mean, as a piece of literature,
Yeah.
But I watch the movie, I watch, you do so many research and things like that, which I think it makes you much more of an intelligent performer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It also allows you to bring your own interpretation of things. Of course, being respectful to the choreography, to the score, to the libretto and everything, but it allows you to keep it fresh and to make it your own. If you collect and gather the informations, you can then, you have the ingredients, you can create your own cake.
Yeah.
So that's why I love it so much, because there's still so much that at least I have to discover. And I think it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, every day is a school day, definitely.
Yes.
And just in terms of the homage to Legnani, would you say that maybe there was a little bit of national pride behind that, since she was, of course, one of the multiple Italian artists who has a very big name in ballet history? It's an important role. Yeah.
I mean, it's something that it's, you have to remind yourself, you know what I mean? Because like sometimes I go like, oh my God, like she was the first, well, obviously Cinderella, but also the first Odette Odile in the Petit Pas version, and also the first Raimonda. And then you think like, oh, Antonietta Dell'Era was just another Italian. She was the first Sugar Plum Fairy. Then Carlotta Brianza was the very first Aurora. Then you think like, oh, Carlotta Grisi was the very first Giselle. There has been a lot of Italian primas that, they made history, like actually in these ballets that we perform, like the three Italians were the first female leads in Tchaikovsky ballets. This is crazy. This is really crazy. Or like Giuseppina Bozzacchi, she was the first Svanilda. You think of all these things. Or like Maria Taglioni, like the emblematic, like she's the ballerina, but so she's, of course, there's a lot of influence from France, from like other countries and stuff. But if you think about it, yeah, but it's not something that I carry like with pride. But when I think about it, it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really really, really cool. And so, yes, I mean, also Enrico Cecchetti was part of that, a period and time. So it's, yeah, I have to say that a little bit of like healthy patriotism comes out, and you're just like, oh, maybe it's, I don't know, you feel related to that, but it's not something that I would like go for, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? It will put something, you understood.
yeah,
You understood.
yeah. No,
Yes.
in terms of ballet, especially ballet history, Italy has a lot to be proud of. Absolutely,
Yeah, I have to
definitely.
say, it's a shame that now, it's a big shame that now, like, many cultural institutions in Italy are closing because of loss of funds and things like that, especially ballet companies. I think it's,
Mm.
yeah, I think people, I won't go get political, but I'll just say what I said before. I think people should read more books.
Yeah,
That's what.
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
it
there's,
yeah, it's great. Also, many Italian composers like Pugni, Drigo, they were part of the
yeah,
of the imperial theaters. So Pugni was born in Genova, I believe, like me. So it's, you feel that it's like a bit of this magic in the air, let's say. But yes, yeah. When you think about it,
yeah,
yes, you feel better.
yeah.
I would.
Yeah,
I don't
we're
know.
going to be a bit over time here, Antonio. I hope that's okay. But yes, so just a couple more questions, of course. I mean, so obviously I'll talk about ballet history and you being a choreographer and so on. Of course, over the years we've seen a lot of people, a whole group of people who are reconstructing and recreating. So we've obviously got Ratmansky and Doug Fillington, and with the Sergeyev collection, and of course we had Lacotte, who
Mm-hmm.
was known, who was famous for bringing back old works that were considered lost.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think maybe you would maybe like to join that circle one day? Would you like to learn how to read 19th century notation? Would you like to maybe stage ballets where the score is available but there's no choreography of the past? Do you think you would like to maybe follow in those footsteps?
Yeah, I
Join that group?
think I think I'm maybe more interested in finding old scores
Mm-hmm.
and creating maybe my interpretation on it, like the based maybe more on the petit pas style and all these things, but try to still like stimulate my creativity to
Yeah,
try to find something and fresh, because I believe that although extremely interesting, I think the reconstruction is a completely other side of choreographing.
yeah,
Absolutely. It's very you need to really sit down, study a method first. It's a kind of work that I'm not sure, I mean, never say never in life. I'm very open to many things. I could try that, but I don't know if it's something that I'm maybe more directed towards. But
yeah,
I would love for sure to find many, many old scores and try to give a new interpretation, still trying to be faithful to Petit Pas.
yeah,
That would be great. And recreate my thing. But what I can say, it would be great if more ballets would be reconstructed by other people.
yeah.
That's what love to see. That's what I will pay a very good seating ticket to go and watch. Absolutely. Like if more people could do that, like you have my agreement, like you have my green light. Please go, because it's one of the most interesting things I have seen, like in ballet, like really in like these reconstructions are fantastic. So the more the better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Are there
love.
any particular 19th century ballets that you would love to recreate?
Yes. The answer is yes. The problem is that we need to really find the score, but I'm sure it's somewhere out there. I've always had quite a soft spot since school with the Little Humbacked Horse. I think it's absolutely such a charming ballet, and I think it's because obviously now we have the Shedrin version of
Yeah,
that, which of course, but I find the Pugni music to be so charming, so ballet wise, and I think it could be such a kind of situation now with Cinderella, like Prokofiev and Massenet and Shedrin and Pugni. I think it could be something that could be enjoyed by also many families. It could be, of course, it would be a big lavish ballet, but why not? And it's a really nice story. It makes sense because it's a fairy tale.
mm-hmm.
So I always found it. I had a soft spot in school, since there were like people in concerts were doing always the Ocean and the Pearls, or this, like it was mostly the Underwater Kingdom or the
Yes, yes,
fresco. like that's what kind of basically survives nowadays. So yeah, if someone has the score out there, bring it on. I would love to. Like that's a big thing, but of course you need big cast, big sets, big costumes, and a theater that will be willing to stage that. But that will be absolutely delightful to do. Yes, yeah, that would be my first answer.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I think you will actually find the score. I think it's in the Sergeyev collection.
Is it?
Yes. Uh-huh. Along, I think some of Patsika's choreography is there too. Gorsky's
Okay.
mainly, but it is there. So
Okay.
maybe put that on your list of things to do. Yeah.
Okay, guys,
Yeah.
you know where to find us. Please, please. You here. Yes, I'll find the money. Don't worry.
Ah, wonderful.
Yes.
Staged everywhere, yes. And of course, yeah, just sticking to that question, of course, because Growcott staged one of his recreations in Poland, La Gypsy,
Yes.
Talione's La Gypsy, yes.
Yes.
So obviously that humpbacked horse, yeah. And but of course, I don't think La Gypsy is. I think the choreography is lost, although Growcott and he might have known some of it. And but in probably the sense that Growcott, because if a ballet where we don't know if the choreography has survived, any ballets there that you would re-choreograph in your own style, do you think, or would you just stick to is humpback horse still the one you would do?
Yeah, I think that, and I think there's also I think because that there's the score available of that actually recorded. I think it's the Magic Flute, not the Mozart one, but the Drigo. I think that would be very nice, but to also find the plot and things, but you can also create your own. This is fine. You can drink 2 glasses of wine and you find the plot in your head eventually. But it's like, yeah, I think probably that. I think it's nice when you also incorporate like maybe choreographies from the past, because if I will redo if it will ever happen, my little and back horse, of course I'm gonna keep the frescoes.
Okay.
Of course I'm gonna keep exactly petit pas, but the missing bits I will have to create my own based on the style. But it will also, I mean, it's great choreography and it will also save me time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I watch it from a practical point of view. But yes, there will. I think the more you discover, the more you can get hooked onto things. You know what I mean? So I am very. Maybe who knows? Maybe one day I'll also be able to read the Stepanov method and create a reconstruction. Who knows? Only time.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we can get you the manuals then, so you can. Maybe you and Adam could start learning how to read it.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
That would be a good start. That would be a good start. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'll be.
I'll see if I can find a PDF and I'll send it to you both. Yes, because you'll find it easier to learn than me because you're both dancers. So yes, but it's from what I've studied. It's if you can read music, it's actually not so bad actually.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. Read a bit from my piano days, but I think I'll have to revamp that a little bit as well. But yeah. If you put the work, everything comes out for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So the last question before we wrap up.
Okay.
So,
okay.
This is a question I love to ask anybody, actually, whoever I'm interviewing. But if you could travel back in time to see any ballet or ballets or any performances, what do you think you would go and see if you could?
Okay. So the first, I have 3 or 4, but I'll be quick. The first be the very, very, very premiere of Giselle in 1831, to see how many things stayed and how many things got changed before and after Petit Pas, and to see really how was the really true, like not true, but like the very first original concept of Giselle, and to see why it was such a success. And of course, being in Paris in the 1840s, that will be, for one night, why not?
Carlotta Grisi and Lucien Petit Pas in the leading role.
So, and I will be able to speak to her since she's Italian. So, and so that would be great. Then I always had, obviously the Sleeping Beauty premiere.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm talking premieres. Like, I want to go. If I have to travel back in time, I gotta go to the premiere. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna go to like the matinee. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go to the premiere. So, with all respect for matinees, but and something that always fascinated me, because there's gazillion versions of that, and we never really know what was the first intention. Generally, I would actually. I mean, I don't know. Not original maybe, but I would love to see the Nutcracker actually. To see how that was actually really staged. And of course we know that, for example, the candy cane dance was, it's the same as balancing, because it, that was taken from the dancer who was dancing that in the imperial production. So all things like that. And we know that at least libretto wise, the balancing version is surprisingly the closest to petit pas, but I would still love to see that, I would say. And then last but not least, just for the fun of it, it's not petit pas, but I would love to go to the Rite of Spring premiere. Oh my goodness. And see if the riots and the rumors were real. Absolutely. Oh my God. Yes, of course. I would love to go and watch that. Like maybe like hiding in a corner or something like that, but really see if all the rioting, the fighting, the turning on and off lighting, where like a true the shouting behind the scene. Like, yeah, absolutely. It's a short ballet, so you can do that,
Yeah.
I can deal with that. So yeah, I think this would be my four to go. Hard to pick one, unfortunately.
Yeah, good choices. And of course, if we do develop the ability to travel back in time, we better not forget our cameras. So because we'll need to we'll need for everyone to see them. Absolutely.
Yeah,
but
right.
yeah,
Start to like know everything like that, But yeah, that would be so. Guys, so we just have two requests coming out of this interview. Give us the scores of Little Ambassadors and build a traveling machine, please. That's all we need. That's all we need.
Yes, indeed, absolutely. Well, Antonio, thank you so much for joining me, and it was a pleasure to arrange this. I'm glad I could, and of course, a big thank you to everybody for joining in. And yes, Cinderella is available to watch on YouTube. I can always stick the link in my bio profile, and yes, so it's a joy to watch, everyone. I would strongly recommend it. And again, big congratulations on putting it all together, Antonio. And yes, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next. Absolutely. And let's get you let's see if I can get you the manuals for the Stepanov notation, so we can get
Please.
so we can get you that as our next notation experts. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, thank you. And
yes, and thank you so much, Amy, for organizing this. This has been really a delight. Thank you for trusting me to do this interview. Congratulations on being your first live. So congratulations on that. Thank you so much for having me, for believing in this, and for great questions. I loved every question. I'm sorry, I'm Italian, so I talk a lot, so we went a bit over time, but thank you for everyone for watching, of course. Thank you so much. And yes, the link is still available on YouTube, I think till the 18th or 19th of February. And if if the link expires, we still have shows in March and June of Cinderella. So I invite anybody to Warsaw. And by the way, I wanted to show you before I forget, this is the poster of that. It's that's actually my friend made. So if you see that, that's the right Cinderella, because there's a lot of Cinderellas going on. But credits to Remy Lampig, my colleague, who is also a fantastic artist, as you can see. And her boyfriend did the projections for the show. So I'm surrounded by many talented people. And so, but anyway, thank you so much, Emmy. This has been absolutely wonderful. And yeah, thank you. I don't know what else to say. This was really a delightful way to spend a Sunday. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really.
Grazie. Maybe next time it'll be. I see you. Of course, it'll be in Warsaw in March or June. I really hope I can make it over. Yes, absolutely. Grazie. Thank you so much.
Grazie a te. Veramente. Grazie.
And thank you again to everybody for joining in. And let's hope that we have the next another live again soon. I hope we do. This was a great experience for me too.
Yeah.
So
it's not that bad. It's not that bad. You see, it's pretty.
No, thank you. But it really isn't. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Antonio. And yes, of course, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And everyone else, and thank you all for following the platform as well. Thank you, Antonio, for following the platform.
Yes. And please follow the Marius Petit Pas Society. She has great insights. Every time a new post comes out, I'm always there. Like, it takes me away from reality. It makes me dive in this wonderful journey. No, but that's true. That's true. It makes me dive something new about something that I like, you know, there's always so much brilliant information that sometimes I have to go and reread it, because there's so much new that anybody can learn about. Either you're a dancer or just like an enthusiast, wherever you are in the ballet spectrum, or even if you're not a dancer, just go and read it. As I said before, let's read some books, you know.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, no, yes, thank you all for following the platform, and to all, of course, you also follow my Substack, which is my new writing platform. So yes, of course, keep the follows in, and follow Antonio too, of course, absolutely. And yes, so thank you again, and
Thank you.
I'll see you very soon, Antonio. Ciao, bello. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you. See you soon, Amy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.